everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about Everything's Coming Up Rosie by Courtney Walsh. So, this one is a contemporary romance, although it could be classified as women's fiction or contemporary fiction. I'm going to run with it being a romance because there's a complete romance story arc that runs through the story. It's also a clean and wholesome story, so that's the fiction category that fits within. And it's a standalone story. So, why did I want to read this one? Well, I've enjoyed reading Courtney Walsh's books in the past, including The Happy Life of Isadora Bentley and Merry Xmas. And I have book recommendations for those ones, and you can find them at my blog, at my website at narelleatkins.com, and there'll be a link in the show notes. So I'll start with my usual disclaimer, and many thanks to the publisher for providing an advance reader copy of the book, and all the opinions that I express in this episode are completely my own. So let's talk about the book. Everything's Coming Up Rosie by Courtney Walsh is set in Wisconsin in Door County. Now, there's quite a few tropes in this one. So, in terms of the romance tropes, we have a friends to more romance going on, and it's very much an opposites attracts in different worlds character combination with that. We also have forced proximity because the main characters are living and working in the same location, which I'll get to in a minute. And in terms of the rom-com, we have a very impulsive main character who tends to act without thinking at times, which leads to some very hilarious moments. And that's a type of character trait you often find with rom-coms. And with the women's fiction elements in the story is very much a journey of self-discovery. And so we do have the angst and the overthinking that tends to go with women's fiction stories as well. Although despite the angst being in the story, it's a very light-hearted and fun read. It's not deep and depressing and dour. So don't worry about that. We just have a character that lives in her head a lot. And we also have found family themes in the story, and it looks at the story looks at the importance of community as well. So these are the first lines, and I'm going to read both lines. You'll understand why in a minute, because the first line wouldn't make sense by itself. So here are the first lines in the book. Well, shoot, this isn't how my life is supposed to go. And that second line very much sums up where Rosie is at the start of the story. So she's our leading lady, and she is from New York City, although she's originally from a small town in Illinois. And she's homeless and broke and out of work and doesn't have a job. So, because she doesn't have a job and has no money, she's 4 months behind on her rent. So, her flatmates in New York City basically say, I'm sorry, you can't live here anymore. We can't afford to subsidize you, which is fair enough. But to Rosie's credit, she does repay the rent money. So, don't worry about that aspect in the story. She's diligent in terms of fixing that at the end. Now, she's totally desperate to get a job, and she applies for everything pretty much across the country that she can find. And she hits the jackpot when this theatre director role in Wisconsin turns up. And she looks up the name of the regional theatre and works out where she thinks it is, although it doesn't actually end up being where she thinks it is, which is quite funny the way that all pans out. So the actual job that she thinks is a regional theatre is actually a theatre in a retirement community. And the actors and the stage crew and everyone are basically residents and staff at the retirement community, which is very different to what she initially expects, which is a lot of fun. And one of her problems that she has is that she believes she's a failure. So she sees this job she's landed in, although it feeds her and pays her bills and gives her somewhere to live, she also considers that a failure as well and quite embarrassing. And she's very reluctant to tell her family and friends about this job that she has and the actual nature of it. So let's talk about the hero in the story. So he is just delightful. His name is Booker. He's 33 years old. He's a physical therapist, and he's from Wisconsin, and he lives in the retirement village community. So Rosie is 29 and living in New York City. So as you can see, they're very much from different worlds. And his adopted grandmother lives in the retirement community, which is his draw card for staying there and working there. And his life is pretty comfortable. He's cruising along. He's got lots of friends and everything's going along pretty well. And then, of course, he meets Rosie. And they challenge each other in many ways, but really, as he's one of the many people in the delightful cast of characters that challenges Rosie to think about what's important in life. Now, Rosie has a lot of problems, which we hear about in great detail in the story, and she really starts from the situation of being in a complete mess. And all her friends that she knew in high school are living their best lives. They are married, they have children on the way, all sorts of things are happening with them. And they seem to be getting the success that they want in different areas of their lives. Whereas she feels like she's stuck, that she's been banging her head against a brick wall and getting nowhere, that she's been trying and trying and trying to live this dream she has of being a successful actor and making it in New York in the theatre. And it's just not happening. So she's been faking her success and is kind of good at pretending, or she tries to justify her lying. Although I think deep down she really knows that she's being dishonest, but she tries to present a successful mask to people and thinks that they buy it, but that's not necessarily the way life works, which she finds out during the story. And she really, in many respects, at the start of the story, is her own worst enemy because she's living in denial and she's afraid of feelings and she's got a lot of fears. And a lot of that is holding her back in terms of her craft as an actor, which also comes out in the story. So the meet cute between Rosie and Booker is just adorable, and actually they're probably their first few meetings are hilarious. It's like this meet cute that just continues to get worse and worse for Rosie. It's embarrassing, it's funny, it's awkward, it's all those things that you want to see in a meet cute. And there is a golf cart situation. I'm not going to say what happens, but when you get to this situation, you will be laughing out loud because it is hilarious. And it just shows how Rosie sometimes acts before she thinks and doesn't have a lot of common sense in some situations, although she's very smart in other ways. So the story has a lot of issues that we're addressing, particularly this is where the women's fiction elements in the story come in. So we're really on Rosie's journey of self-discovery, where she's starting to learn about herself. And so she thinks she knows who she is and has it all worked out and is an expert on people because she's an actor and has studied how to play a role, but she doesn't dig into her own past and the trauma that she's experienced for different reasons. And it takes her time to realize that the reason that things aren't working out the way she wants her life to work out has a lot to do with her denial of dealing with stuff that's happened in the past. So she's very fearful in terms of from an emotional perspective. She fears rejection, so she holds herself back and she kind of has walls up to make it hard for people to become friends with her because she's really afraid of being rejected. And she considers herself a failure. She measures herself against her old school friends and other people, and they're doing all these amazing things, is her perception. And she's failing and going nowhere and treading water and feeling like life just isn't turning out the way she would like. And she really doesn't understand that she's holding herself back. And so the journey in the story that she's going on is her learning about herself and understanding why she is the way she is and why she's triggered by certain things. And it's that journey of self-discovery is what I really liked about the story. And it's the whole concept of having dreams, and sometimes the dreams that you start out with when you're younger are not necessarily the best thing for you. And Rosie really needs to learn in the story the importance of pivoting. And pivoting doesn't mean that you've failed at something. It just means that a different opportunity has opened up that could actually be better for you in the long run, although at the time you can't necessarily see that. So as I said, there's lots of fun stuff going on this story, and it's very much a clean and wholesome read from that perspective as well. And there were so many things I loved about the book. So Booker was just adorable. He was so kind and patient and considerate of Rosie and her needs. And she really needed to meet a guy like that who wasn't going to be pushy, who was going to let her work things out in her own time, and who understood that she needed to go on her own journey of self-discovery before she was ready to be in a relationship. And I really appreciated how Booker had the insight to see all those things and was prepared to stand back and just let her work herself out. And I love the theatre and the retirement community and the authenticity that Courtney Walsh brought to the story. I mean, her background is in theatre and she has a community theatre. It was just shone through in the story, and I just love that. And seeing the side characters, which were the staff and the retirement village people that lived there, they were really quirky. There were some interesting characters. They weren't all nice people. There was one lady who was particularly difficult and didn't make life easy. And there were some hidden gems. And Rosie found some mentors in the story that she wouldn't have probably realized at the time were people who could actually mentor and help her. But they played quite a critical role in the story, and I really enjoyed seeing how that played out. And I loved when they did the Cinderella production, and there was all sorts of things that happened with this production that was funny. There was some moments where we thought that it wasn't actually going to happen because different things would go wrong. And I appreciated seeing the community of people pull together to get this theatre production done. It was delightful to watch and to read. And these side characters that helped Rosie were just, they had their own stories as well. There was another little romance going on, a few other things happening, and they were just delightful and just so fun. And it was just really fun journeying with them in the story as well. And the Friends to More Romance, as I said, it was a bit low key in the sense that it's single point of view. So we don't actually hear what Book is thinking, but it was also low angst as well. And it was just lovely and delightful. And it was a very, very satisfying ending as well to the romance as well. I loved how the story ended. It was a very satisfying conclusion. So my favorite book quote in the story is this one. You can't make anyone feel anything if you aren't willing to feel it yourself. Now, the context of this quote is Rosie, and she's thinking about her acting and what's been going on with her acting career and her acting ambitions. And it's really, there's a point in the story where she starts to realize that she has been her own worst enemy, and her refusal to consider what's happened in her life and the hurts and the pain and stuff that's happened in her childhood. And by suppressing that and denying it, she's lost an opportunity to dig deeper into her own emotions, and then she can draw on those emotions for the characters that she's bringing to life on the stage to actually see that raw emotion rather than her putting on a mask, which is a bit more superficial than that authenticity that she could bring if she actually tapped into her own emotions. So that was a really interesting journey in the story, and I like seeing that. Now, in terms of the impact on me, it was laugh out loud funny, which is why I'm calling it a rom-com. And there was lots of humorous moments, lots of really fun, cute, light-hearted scenes. And as I said, the characters were definitely an ensemble cast that belong in a rom-com. They were just delightful. And Rosie's journey and of self-reflection and learning about herself had some poignant moments where she had to face a few things and learn a few things and admit that she didn't have it all together, and admit to people that what she was presenting wasn't necessarily a reflection of truth. And she really had a journey to go on with that, and I appreciated that as well. In summary, I would recommend this book to readers who like books that include community theatre and seeing how all that works behind the scenes, to readers who like books set in retirement communities, to readers who like clean and wholesome romance where the characters go on a journey of self-discovery, for readers who like first person point of view where we're in the one character's head for the whole story. If you like opposites attract to different world romances, you'll like this one. And if you like Friends to More romance, also recommend it to readers who like forced proximity with the characters all living and working together in the same location. And if you like the women's fiction self-discovery journey that you'll often find in those stories, then you'll like this one. And particularly if you want to take away from the book that the character needs to discover what's important in life and to work out where they've made a wrong turn and how to redirect and pivot to become happier and more fulfilled and to move into a better space in life and all those kind of things, then you'll love this one as well. Thanks for joining me today. Does Everything's Coming Up Rosie sound like a book that you'd like to read? What did you think? Have you read it? You can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send me a text via a link in the show notes. If you're watching at YouTube, you can like the episode and leave a comment at YouTube. You can also email me via my website, and you can find the contact form there at narelleatkins.com. Please subscribe if you've enjoyed listening to this episode, and you can subscribe at your favorite podcasting app or at YouTube, and then you won't miss an episode because you'll be notified for the next one that comes up. And also, please share this episode link with a friend who you think would enjoy reading Courtney Walsh's books and who likes reading clean and wholesome romance and rom-coms. All the links I've mentioned are in our show notes. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.